there! Welcome to the Talk About Talk podcast. You are in for a fantastic episode. I am really, really excited about this one. Over the past couple of months, I've been asking you for questions in my email newsletter, on LinkedIn and Instagram, and even here on the podcast. What communication skills questions do you have for me? Today, I'm answering those questions. This Q&A episode is your chance to hear my answers to your questions. This is like a free coaching session. In case we haven't met, my name is Dr. Andrea Wojnicki. Please just call me Andrea. I'm an executive communication coach at Talk About Talk, where I coach ambitious executives like you to communicate with confidence, clarity, and credibility. Why? So that you can make an impact and achieve your career goals. You can learn more about what I do if you go to talkabouttalk.com, or you can connect with me on social media. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and I would love to see you there. Okay, let's get into this. I scoured my inbox and my social media feeds to collect your questions, and we're going to dive in right now. Let's talk about talk. I've got question number 1 printed right in front of me. Let me read it to you. This is from a listener named Steven who emailed me. Here's his question. One thing that's tripping me up with communication skills is what others are thinking about me and about what I'm saying. Are they thinking, ugh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about? Or is it something like, what in the world is this guy talking about? I'm so lost. I also begin to overanalyze my audience, and I think that they're all zoned out, and the look that they're giving me is a look of, we don't really want to be here. Andrea, I need your help. All right, Stephen, a couple things for you. First of all, what you're describing here is a perfect example of imposter syndrome. And you need to know imposter syndrome is very, very common. It is only a few exceptions that I can think of clients of mine who do not experience imposter syndrome. And the good news is you can overcome it with practice and with different mindsets and tactics. So that's one thing. You're describing imposter syndrome and you can overcome it. The second thing I want to say, based on the way that you worded your question for me, Stephen, is I'm going to diagnose you as someone who has very high self-awareness. Let me back up for a minute here and talk about the research on self-awareness, which is very important if you want to be an exceptional communicator. So the research on self-awareness shows that there are really 2 different types of self-awareness: internal self-awareness and external self-awareness. Internal self-awareness is probably what most of us think about when we think about the term self-awareness. It's being conscious of our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, and even our physicality. Like I'm hot, I'm cold, I'm shaking, I'm nervous, whatever. Okay, so that's internal self-awareness. There's another kind of self-awareness that maybe we don't think about as often, external self-awareness. So external self-awareness is being aware of your environment and context around you, and specifically aware of your impact on others. And Stephen, the way that you worded your question to me, it sounds as if you are very high on external self-awareness. And I want to tell you, this is great news because this is a key ingredient for exceptional communication. I hope that in and of itself will help to elevate your confidence. I'm going to provide you with one other tip that I hope helps. And it is simply to check in. It is okay whether you are in front of an audience. The way you worded your question, you used the term audience. So I'm guessing that you're talking about when you're giving a formal presentation. But even if you're in a meeting, you're seated around a table or around a screen if you're online, and you're making your point and you're interpreting through your external self-awareness that people might not be getting their message. You might not be clear. They might not agree with you, whatever the point is. It is a power move to pause and say, I just want to check in with everyone. Is the last point that I made here clear? And you could be more specific and say the point about whatever, the reason my recommendation or my rationale here, whatever it is. Check in and ask them. You can be very explicit. Can I have a raise of hands on, is everyone clear? If you're clear, raise your hand. Or you could say, raise your hand if you have any questions. I would love to pause and answer it right now. So when you do this, you're helping your audience. You're making sure that if they have any questions, they have an opportunity to ask and to check in. And you're also helping yourself. You're clarifying whether what you're interpreting in terms of your external self-awareness is in fact true. So I wouldn't do this, 4 or 5 times in a presentation. Of course, maybe you do it once or twice. But if you're making a very important point that you want to make sure is clear, and or if you're catching some cues in terms of facial expressions, body language, that things might not be clear, it is a power move to pause and ask them explicitly. I hope that helps, Stephen. Okay, let's move on to the next question. The next question I have here is from Christine, who emailed me. Hello, Dr. Wojnicki. I wanted to write you about the communication issue that I struggle with. I've noticed that since I've been going through menopause, my memory and energy has plummeted, and the brain fog has me grasping for words. It's like I can't mouth these simple, everyday words that are on the tip of my tongue, and it's infuriating. I feel dumb and flaky around my coworkers, which then turns into the imposter syndrome, as communication is paramount in my line of work. This feeling has damaged my confidence to a certain extent and has caused me anxiety. Okay, Christine, there we go with the imposter syndrome topic again. So I want to clarify before I answer your question that I'm going to answer this in the context not of getting over menopause brain, but you could have baby brain. If you have a young infant in your house, it could be that you are sleep deprived. Maybe you're hungover, whatever. You're not at your best. Maybe you got in a big fight with your spouse before you got into work. The point is, you know that you're not at 100%. And how do you make sure that your communication is optimized in this context? I do have 3 suggestions. And for those of you who have been listening to the Talk About Talk podcast, you know I'm a big fan of the power of 3. So Christine, I'm going to give you 3 suggestions, and 2 of them are kind of obvious. And the third one is actually my main recommendation for you. The first thing I want to suggest is if you're going into a high stakes meeting, even if it's just a status meeting with your boss and you're feeling, sleep deprived or you have menopause brain, whatever the reason is, preparation will help you immensely. So make sure you understand what's on the agenda. Make sure you understand what your role is. Think in advance of some things that you can say. The truth is, most of us don't do it. And if you spend some time preparing in advance for the meeting, you may end up providing more value than others in the meeting, despite your brain fog. Okay, so think about what the topic is. Think about what you might say. Anticipate and prepare. My second suggestion is, again, before you go into this meeting, separate from what the agenda is, I want you to focus on your personal brand. I want you to focus on your unique professional identity. And what do I mean by that? Before you go into this meeting, Christine, think about your unique strengths, skills, expertise, and passions. The things that you can add value on in the meeting. So it's probably an internal meeting and you're meeting with other people that work at the same company. What unique value do you bring? And then make sure those are the things that you comment on. That will help elevate your confidence and help you be a bigger contributor in the meeting. So that's my second suggestion. My third suggestion for anyone out there, generally, but especially if you're not ticking at 100%, like Christine was talking about with brain fog, is to think about using frameworks. Frameworks are great because they will boost your confidence. You have a structure that you're following. The structure is also proven, so it'll make better sense to the people you're communicating with, and it'll help boost your confidence. 2 frameworks that come to mind are my self-introduction framework and also using the power of 3. So my self-introduction framework is present, past, future. If you go into a meeting and you're asked to introduce yourself, whether you have brain fog or not, please use the self-introduction framework. It'll help you do so with confidence. Here's the framework. Present, past, future. Present, so start with who you are and what you do. Hi, my name is Christine. I'm a construction consultant at ABC Company. Okay? Present. Then you move to past. Here's where you establish credibility. So you, depending on the context, you mention 1 or 2 or at most 3 things about yourself or about your past that are relevant to the context and that will help you establish credibility. You could say, I've been here for 3 years where I came in at this role, I got promoted to this, and last month we succeeded in achieving this goal, right? So you say a few things that are relevant to establish credibility for yourself. Then you move on to the future tense. Here's where you say something enthusiastic about what's to come. You could say, I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you better, working on this project together and knocking it out of the park. So research shows that enthusiasm wins. end your self-introduction with a statement of enthusiasm. So that's one framework you can use, is the self-introduction framework. And then the other framework that you can use is just using the power of 3. Imagine, Christine, you have brain fog and your boss says, in this meeting, we need to make a decision. Are we going with option A or option B? Christine? And you're like, oh dear. And you've got brain fog. Just remember the power of 3. Here's what you say. There are many advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons for option A and option B. I'm going to go with option B. 3 reasons that come to mind. Reason number 1, da-da-da-da. Reason number 2, da-da-da-da. Reason number 3. Even if you don't have 3 reasons at the top of your mind, Christine, when you say this, you're smart enough that they'll come to you. So highlight 3 reasons and then say, again, I understand that there are some advantages to option A, but for these 3 reasons, I really recommend that we go with option B. And you sound so succinct when you say this. You've got structure to your answer. You're doing your audience, the other people in the room, a favor. You're telling them, I'm going to tell you 3 reasons why. So when you get to the second one, they're like, she's not going to keep rambling. She's only got one more. You're doing them a favor. You're doing yourself a favor. You're boosting your confidence and you're communicating with clarity. Okay, Christine, thank you for that question. I hope that helps. Let's move on to the next question. The next question is on LinkedIn. Actually, I got questions from many folks, including Jad, Mohammed, and Daniel. They are all asking for tips on developing, or as a few of them said, nailing their elevator pitch or their elevator speech. My answer to this general question may surprise you. It's this. No, I will not help you nail your elevator pitch or your elevator speech. Why? 2 reasons. 1, an elevator pitch always sounds rehearsed because it is, and you don't want to sound rehearsed. Secondly, an elevator pitch or an elevator speech is not customized, and therefore it is not optimized for the audience. Okay, Andrea, so you're not going to help me with my elevator pitch. So what do I say when I get on the elevator and the CEO is there? And I know I've got 2.5 minutes to get from the 40th floor down to the main floor with the CEO. What do I say? Here's what I tell you. You don't start by talking about yourself. Instead, bring something up about the other person that they care about. I promise you, the CEO has people pitching them all day. Does anyone ever ask them how they are? Does anyone ever comment on the work that they've done? So that's my first piece of advice, is check in with the other person. It could be as simple as, how's your day going? Even better, ask them about a project that you know they're working on, or maybe one that they just completed that's positively impacted your work. So make it about them. Then you can go into your pitch, if you want to call that. If you don't know the person, this is a fantastic time to use a self-introduction framework, present, past, future. Make sure that your future comment is very enthusiastic about what you're working on and relate it back to the CEO or the person that you're talking to. If you've already met them, you can still use the framework, but just customize it. Use the self-introduction framework. You could say, well, you may recall I work in this department, right? So talk about who you are and what you do. Go to the past tense and say, recently I've been working on these other projects and we had some great success. So this is your chance to sell yourself a little bit, right? Establishing credibility, as I said. And then again, end it off with a positive statement with enthusiasm talking about the future. So the research shows that enthusiasm wins, as I said before, whether it's in the context of sales, negotiating, teaching and coaching. People are more likely to close the sale, to win the negotiation, to successfully coach and teach people when they demonstrate enthusiasm. And you want to make a positive impression on the CEO, right? So end with I'm really excited about this project and I hope I'll be able to present the outcome of this project to you soon, something like that. So to the folks who are inquiring about nailing their elevator pitch or their elevator speech, don't think of it as a speech. Think of it as an opportunity to check in with the other person and then use the self-introduction framework to guide your comments. Okay, moving on. I had a lot of questions about formal presentations. I'm going to share 3 with you here. The first one is from Amisha on LinkedIn, who said, "What's the best way to practice public speaking when you don't have a live audience?" Okay, Amisha, I'm so glad you asked this. When I read this question, I was like, I'm for sure going to answer this. I work from home, okay? I don't have a bunch of colleagues that I can go and practice or rehearse my keynote speeches or my workshops with. So you know what I do? If it's a high stakes presentation, I will literally stand up and practice presenting to the wall. What do I mean by that? I mean, I did this recently. I was in my kitchen. Nobody else was home. And I had to deliver a 15-minute, so very time-bound keynote speech. I wrote out my speech and then I narrowed it down to one sheet of paper with my main points. I stood up with my sheet of paper. I'm not reading a script, right? I've just got the main points written there. I used the timer on my phone to record how long I would take, and I practiced delivering my speech. The first time I gave it, it was 30 minutes. That's not good. I only had 15. So I sat down, I cut some things out. I tried again. The next time it was 20 minutes. By the time I practiced it a third time, I had it down to 15 minutes and it flowed. And here's the thing. When you practice this way, even though you're standing up, you're practicing talking to a wall, your brain has muscle memory. So when you go out on stage, it's like, I've done this before. And I find that works really well. So don't use the excuse that you don't have people to present to rehearse to, as an excuse for not practicing. Practice does make perfect. Next question about formal presentation is from Mikolaj on LinkedIn. How can I stop my voice from shaking during presentations? So Mikolaj, I don't have an issue with my voice shaking now, but earlier in my career, it definitely happened. I remember when I was a sales rep and then I was working in the marketing department at Kraft Foods, I had to give some presentations, and very often I would be sweating and shaking and my voice would be shaking. So I have a couple things to share with you that help a lot: physical things and mental things. So physically, first, I know you probably know this is where I'm headed. Breathing is key. I've had the great opportunity to interview some fantastic vocal coaches over the last couple of years on this podcast. And breathing is always a core tenet of optimizing your voice. So recently, in the research that I've been reading, it's actually your exhale. So yes, you want to breathe deeply and slowly, but particularly your exhale. Why? Because when you slow or elongate your exhale, your brain says, oh, I'm not gasping for air. Everything must be okay. And then it calms your body and your brain down. So just try this before you go out on stage or before you answer that big important question in a meeting. Take a slow, deep breath and really slow your exhale. Now, you don't want to blow like that into the microphone, but you get the idea. So slow your exhale. This will calm your body down and make your voice sound better. The other thing physically that you can do that most people do, but not everyone does, is make sure you have water. So if you're in a meeting, always have water with you. And especially if you're going out on stage, I used to bring a glass of water. Now I always bring a plastic bottle with a lid just in case it falls down. And it seems like it's Murphy's Law. If I have it there with me, I won't need it. But there have been a few times when I've been on stage in front of an audience where my throat has gone really dry and I desperately would have appreciated a sip of water. So bring a bottle of water with you, whether it's a meeting or whether you're on stage. So you've looked after yourself physically. You're breathing deeply, elongating your exhale, and you've got your water with you in case you need it. Mentally, what do you do to optimize your nerves and not have a shaky voice? What I do, what works for me, is a mantra. My mantra goes like this: Andrea, you know what you know, and you're keen to learn more. Let me break that apart for you. You know what you know. This is about me doubling down on my expertise. I'm not saying I'm good at everything. Andrea, you're the best. No. You know what you know. You know consumer psychology. You know communication. You know whatever the topic is of the speech that I'm giving or the keynote. So remind yourself of your skills and your expertise. This will elevate your confidence and provide you with focus, okay? And then the second part of it is, and you're keen to learn more. This is about me reminding myself of my growth mindset. There's a good chance someone in the audience is going to ask me a question that I haven't thought about before and I don't have an answer to. This is an opportunity to learn. So with my mantra, I'm reminding myself of my strengths and my growth mindset. You are welcome to steal or borrow my mantra, by the way. But regardless, I encourage you to use a mantra. This will focus your brain on the good, right? And it'll also distract you from your anxiety and your nerves. I find it works, and I have lots of clients who do the same, and they say it works for them. Okay, third question about formal presentation. Elena on LinkedIn asked, what's the secret to recovering smoothly after you lose your train of thought on stage? So, yes, I've had this happen to me a few times when I'm actually giving virtual presentations. It's happened when I get distracted, when I'm looking at someone on the screen, and I know that it happens to people all the time. I do have an answer for you here. The answer is to be singularly focused on what your main point of your presentation is. This actually has a couple of benefits, right? If you think about it, the presentation that has many, many main points is going to be less engaging and less memorable than the one that has one key point. So this will provide you with focus, and that will benefit your audience or your listeners. The other thing that having a main point does is it allows you to reset. So imagine you're giving a presentation and someone asks you a question, mid-presentation, and you answer it, and then you're like, hang on a second, where was I? And whether or not you have slides, you might not remember what you were going to say next. If you go back to your main point, that will bring you back to your presentation and the focus. And in every situation where I've heard this happening, it'll remind you of where you were. So it'll boost your confidence, it'll help your audience, and if you lose track of where you are in the presentation, it'll bring you back. Be crystal clear on your main point. The last question I have here is also from LinkedIn. Two people asked me this. Daniel and Monia separately asked for tips on developing executive presence. So I think about this a lot because executive presence is something that I would say most of my clients are seeking. And so I have three things, again, the power of three things that we can all work on to help us elevate our executive presence. The first one, maybe this will surprise you, maybe not. The first thing is to focus on your basic communication skills. And when I say basic, I don't mean easy, but I mean the kind of elementary communication skills. Things like listening, storytelling, formal presentations. If you think about the folks around you who are exhibiting executive presence, they all have exceptional communication skills. So you can elevate your executive presence by focusing on your basic communication skills. The second thing is to focus on elevating your confidence. A lot of the questions that we've had here in this Q&A episode have been focused on imposter syndrome and confidence. So think about the tactics and the mindsets that will help you. Everything from deep breathing, reciting a mantra, to doubling down on your personal brand or your professional identity, really thinking about what your unique strengths are. All of these things will help boost your confidence. And the truth is, if you're feeling confident, people will perceive you as confident or as exhibiting gravitas. And that's when you can start to establish credibility and executive presence. So we've got the basic communication skills and we've got confidence. The third way of establishing executive presence is actually a really easy one. And it's interesting. People always answer this one with, oh, I already do that, or, oh, of course. And it's something that they can easily change. And it's this: use the word lead when you're talking about yourself. When you're introducing yourself, when you're talking about your work, use the word lead, leadership, led. The team I led accomplished this. My leadership style is this. I lead the blah, blah, blah function or the blah, blah, blah team, right? So however you can use the term, every time you use the word lead, you are either explicitly or maybe implicitly reinforcing your status as a leader and establishing your executive presence. So 3 ways to help boost your executive presence. 1, work on your basic communication skills. 2, elevate your confidence using mindsets and tactics. And 3, use the word lead in reference to yourself and the work you do whenever you can. Okay, I'm going to stop there. We've covered imposter syndrome and self-awareness, how to boost your confidence and clarity when you have menopause brain, or really any time you have brain fog, why and how to replace your rehearsed elevator pitch with something a little more customized and compelling. I've answered questions about nailing formal presentations and specific advice about how to develop your executive presence. When I look at all of the questions that you asked, there really are three themes here. First, the power of using frameworks. You can optimize your communication with frameworks to guide you while still optimizing and customizing what you say. Yes, I am a big fan of frameworks. Second is the significance of our confidence. We started off with Stephen's description of what it feels like to have imposter syndrome. Yes, it is critical to feel confident and to be perceived as confident. If you want to establish credibility, then you've got to be confident. And the good news is that confidence can be learned. That is what I spend a lot of time actually helping my clients with. The third and last theme is the impact of developing your personal brand. And what I mean by this is focusing on your unique strengths, expertise, and skills. Taking the time to identify your unique strengths will go a long way, and it'll boost your confidence, and it'll establish credibility with the folks that you talk to. I hope this was all helpful. If you're not already subscribed to this Talk About Talk podcast, please hit subscribe now. And you can also forward this episode to your friends who might find it helpful. And as you're going about your day, if you can think of any new communication skills questions for me, I say bring it on. You can connect with me through the talkabouttalk.com website, or you can DM me on LinkedIn. I love hearing from you. Talk soon.